Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is our week 3 homeschool recap where I talk about the highs and the lows of the week, the things that I think went well, things that I'm going to change for next week. And this week, let me just be honest, did not feel good. So if you have been watching my videos or you follow me on social media and think, man, this girl has it all together, she makes homeschooling look so easy, stick around for this one because this is the You're Not Alone video, because homeschooling is hard. There are days and weeks that go really great, and then there are days and weeks that don't go so well and make you question, why the heck am I doing this? And that was this week for me. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Chelsea, a former teacher and now homeschool mom. This is our 5th year homeschooling. I have a 3rd and 4th grader, and we are an eclectic homeschool family, and we do a whole lot of different things around here. If you love homeschool content, I would love for you to subscribe because we post all things homeschool. We share our weekly recaps. My husband and I do a homeschool after hours where we talk about life outside of homeschooling. I share curriculum reviews, tips, tricks, all the things. I would love for you to stick around and see those. Let's get into our week 3 recap, starting off with our highs and lows. I would say a high of the week was my daughter's 10th birthday. That was so much fun, and it's part of the reason why our whole week was thrown off, but it was just a high of the week. We didn't do any school. It's not really homeschool related, but 10 feels so big, and it's such a huge milestone, not only for her, but as a parent. Like, I have been a parent for a decade, and that feels so big. So that was definitely a high of our week. And a low of our week, again, not really homeschool related, but I had my ozone treatment on Monday, and we're trying to spread out my treatments, and so it just like wrecked me. I was so tired Monday night that I wasn't able to plan for Tuesday, and Tuesday just that threw the whole thing off. So really that was a low for the week. It kind of set our week off bad and kind of just like set a low precedent for the entire week. And then with my daughter's excitement for her birthday, it did not go well. And so with that, I feel like another low of the week was that I was not the mom and wife that I wanted to be. I yelled at my kids on Tuesday, which I don't love to do. So it's just all around not a good week. But just to catch you up with where we are currently, I follow the motto, go slow to go fast later. So when we are starting a new school year, I like to ease into our homeschool year. I will add different things every week until we are up to our full schedule. Last week, I added spelling, and I think spelling went really well. But because our whole week was thrown off, I am not going to be adding anything next week. I just want to get into a good routine with all of the things that we currently have, which is reading, math, Bible, spelling, and grammar. So I want a strong, solid week before I add something else back in. And our September gets really crazy, and so I'm just not confident in our rhythm and our routine with what we're doing right now to add something more. So starting off with, I'm not adding anything this week. I am going to go back to the basics, take a step back, let's get in a solid routine with those subjects, and then see how it goes. So that is something I'm doing differently this week. Normally I would add something every week until we're up to our full schedule, but because last week was so off, I don't want to do that. We're just gonna stay right where we are. Another thing that I'm currently trying to figure out is our reading. So we are doing a BJU reading for 3rd and 4th grade. This is my first year using a full reading curriculum because I've done all about reading up until now, and I need to figure out a good way to use it. So if you've watched any of my curriculum videos, which if you haven't, I would highly recommend you go back and watch the 3rd and 4th grade curriculum videos so you know like what I'm using and kind of what I'm trying to get up to for this school year. But the teacher's manual for BJU reading is a classroom teacher's guide, and a classroom teacher's guide is not the same as what you would use in a homeschool. So there are a lot of things you have to sift through and decipher. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't use about that teacher's manual. And so up until this point, I haven't really used it at all. I've just been going off the stories and the work text. And I just feel like my kids are needing a little bit more support, especially around the big ideas and the genres and like fully grasping what those are. And so I know I need to do a better job of figuring out how to manage that teacher's guide, get the most use out of it, and be a support to my kids. So right now I've just had them reading the stories and doing the worksheets, and we've been doing a lot of discussion with that because even the worksheet, some of those questions are those critical thinking higher order questions, which is a big reason why I chose that curriculum, but we're having trouble getting that understanding and understanding the way the questions are worded. So I've had to like step in and reword some of those questions. So I don't know if they're getting like the full effect of it or some of the wording is just weird. So if you've ever used BJU reading and you have some suggestions for me, please leave them in the comments because I would love to have a better understanding of how to use the curriculum and how to navigate that teacher's guide because I'm just really struggling with that. And right now my kids are not loving reading, they're doing it, and I feel like I have seen them excel in reading because of the curriculum. But I just know that there's so much more that we need to do to like fully understand those concepts. So if you have some advice for me, please leave them in the comments because I definitely need some help in that area. We did have a big win this week though. We officially finished our third grade math. We were using Apologia third grade last year and we had a couple more lessons to finish up before we started fourth grade. So we did finish that up this week, which was so exciting. I have never in my 5 years of homeschooling ever completely finished a curriculum. For a lot of reasons. One being that I don't stick with the curriculum as like I don't follow it lesson by lesson because I do a lot of hands-on learning. So I will take a lot of it off the page. I'll skip over like full sections of it because I have different ways of teaching that. And I still did that with this, but this is the first one that we opened like start to finish and finish the curriculum. So that feels like a big win. I feel like we're moving in the right direction. We found a curriculum that we really like and that works for both of my kids. So we were going to be starting the Apologia fourth grade math on Monday. That was a win of our week, something that is exciting, and then we have a new curriculum to look forward to next week. But like I said, I am gonna go back to the basics a little bit. I'm going to stick with what we are doing, try to get in a good rhythm. I want to make sure I'm being consistent with grammar and spelling because I know that my kids are struggling with spelling. They're pretty atrocious spellers actually. So I am using the Orton Gillingham manual that Alana created. She's on Instagram. I will tag her in the video description and put the resource manual that I'm using in the video description. So I use her resource manual and the sound cards that you guys comment about all the time that's in the background of a lot of my videos. Those are in that manual. But I use that manual to create my spelling words for each week. I don't use a spelling curriculum. So I am like paying attention to what I'm seeing my kids writing and the common mistakes, and then I will curate a spelling list based on a specific phoneme or vowel team or whatever I'm noticing that they're making a lot of mistakes in. And right now I want to focus on the long E vowel teams. So we did EE this week because I'm seeing them confuse a lot of those. So I wanted to like go back and explicitly teach that sound and curate my spelling words so that way they're practicing those. But because I'm not using a curriculum, I feel like sometimes I get inconsistent with spelling activities. So I am trying to do better about making sure that I am doing a spelling activity every day to practice. I can't just put it up on the board and they see it every day and then suddenly by Friday they can spell it. So I want to make sure I'm utilizing that. I also want to make sure that I am explicitly practicing that vowel team or the phoneme or whatever it is that we're going to be practicing so that they understand when and why they're using that. So I feel like we practiced the words last week and I did okay about providing activities for that, but I feel like I did not do a good job of explicitly teaching and reminding them why it makes that sound, when it makes that sound, and in what words it makes this sound. So I want to do that this week. So that is going to be my big focus, making sure I do grammar every day and then I do some kind of spelling activity every day. Even though last week kind of feels like a scratch and a wash, there were a lot of things that we did. Like I feel like I'm very proud of us that we stayed consistent. So Monday we had a play date and I had ozone and we still did some schoolwork. We still stayed consistent with that, which is huge because in the past I would have just said, okay, we are busy, there's a lot going on, we're not going to do schoolwork, but we still did. And Tuesday, oh my gosh, Tuesday was a struggle. On Monday night, I was so dead tired that I did not plan for school or lessons for Tuesday. And so I woke up knowing like, okay, I have to plan and get prepared for the day, but I had asked the kids to do some things the night before that weren't done. So not only was I preparing the whole day in the morning, which I don't like to do, but also the things I had asked them to do weren't done. So that was another thing that I had to do. So I was not the best wife and mom that morning. I yelled at the kids. I was really frustrated. Like, I needed you to do these things because mommy was tired and I needed them to be done this morning so I could do X, Y, and Z and you didn't do them, so now I have to do this. So it just set our whole day up for frustration. And again, past Chelsea would have just said, okay, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, this isn't working, we're now starting 2 hours later than we normally would, and so I'm just not going to do it. But we battled. We came back to it and we were consistent, and that feels like a huge win. And then Wednesday is farm school. And we still did some things Wednesday afternoon, even though the kids were dog tired and the first half of our week was thrown off. Wednesday, there was a lot of excitement for my daughter's birthday the next day. So between being tired from farm school and the excitement, I knew that I was not going to get much out of them. But we still did IXL and independent reading. So it felt like, yeah, we're not doing a whole lot. This is not a productive day, but we are staying consistent in our routine and we are doing some schoolwork. So that was awesome. And then I gave them off Friday because we don't do schoolwork on our birthdays around here. So that was also like, we have a 4-day school week. There's a lot of things not going right in this week. And so it would have been really, really easy to just say, okay, we're done for the week. It's going to be a wash. It'll be a week off and we'll pick back up the next week. But I feel like we all persevered through that and said, it's not our best week of learning. None of this is going the way I had planned or I thought it would be. We are not showing up as our best selves, especially me. I'm not showing up as my best self this week, but we need to stay consistent. We need to stay in this rhythm. And so even though we did the bare minimum and barely survived, we did it. And I think sometimes that is the win. That is the success. That is teaching our kids that things aren't always going to go our way. We're not always going to feel like showing up. We're not always going to want to show up, but in life, you just have to show up. And I think that's teaching a lot of lessons outside of just the academics. So I think even though academically it didn't look the way I wanted to, there were a lot of lessons learned this week. There was a lot of love and grace shown this week. And so that is a lesson all on its own. But we are going to go into next week with positive attitudes, prepping and planning. That is so important. This week for sure showed me that I have to do a better job of showing up, making sure that I am planning the night before. No matter how I feel, no matter what I do, I cannot leave it for the next morning because it just throws off our whole day, our whole schedule. So I have to be the one on my game. We're prepping the night before. We are planning. Even if it's the bare minimum, we have to do something. So that is what I'm going into next week. Looking forward to. I'm going to show up every single evening or right after we do our lessons to make sure that I am prepped and ready for the next day so that way I can be the best mom and the best teacher for my kids. That is the week 3 recap. Was not at all what I wanted it to be. Didn't go how I planned, but there were still some successes, things that we learned and things that we can take into next week. One of the most important things to do as a homeschool mom is reflection. Look back at the week, what went well, what didn't go well, what changes do I need to make, what do I need to do in the future, because that will have the most impact on your homeschooling. Even if you have a bad week, why did you have a bad week? What can I do differently? How do I need to show up differently or better in the future? Those make all of the difference. Just one bad week isn't going to ruin your homeschooling. You can make changes and you can show up differently. I think that's something that we need to hold on to as homeschool moms. One bad day, one bad week, one bad month doesn't mean that we are a bad homeschool mom, doesn't mean that we can't do this. It means that we need to do some self-reflection. We need to change up some things. We need to be willing to be flexible and do that self-reflection so that way we can be the best teachers for our kids. Now that I shared my week, I want to know, what are the highs and lows of your week? What are some things you're going to do differently next week? What do you have planned for next week? Share it all in the comments and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.